Stop me if you've heard this one before. A massive corporation releases a piece of hardware. Then they wait 6 years and then tells you it's actually worth more now than when you bought it at launch. We are officially entering the end era of the traditional console cycle. And Sony and Xbox is leading the charge off of the freaking cliff. See, the PlayStation 5, a console that launched 6 years ago in 2020, will start at $600 for the digital version and $650 for the disc model. But the real kicker, the PlayStation 5 Pro, after the latest price hike, you are looking at $900 freaking dollars for the console alone. That's right, the digital one. No disc drive, no vertical stand, just a box and a controller. Now, by the time you add that extra $80 disc drive attachment and the sales tax, and God forbid you want to add the stand, you are staring down at over $1,000 for a mid-generation refresh. This isn't just inflation. This isn't tariffs. This is a fundamental shift in how Sony views you. You aren't a gamer to them anymore. You're a high net worth individual being minded for liquidity. Today, we're looking at the death of the affordable mid-range console and why Xbox, but more importantly, why Sony's arrogance is creating the perfect conditions for the second great video game crash. Oh, who can save us? Maybe the people who saved us the first time. Now, before we get into the technical failure here, we have to address the elephant in the room. The fanboys. For the last 2 years, the Sony Ponies, that crowd has been loud. Every time Xbox adjusted Game Pass pricing by a couple of bucks or raised the price of the Series X in a single territory, it was, quote, the end of Microsoft, the end of Xbox. The hypocrisy is now reaching a fever pitch. Where is that same energy from you guys now? Sony has raised the price of the PlayStation 5 multiple times since it launched. They took a $400 digital machine and hiked it 50%, up to $600 freaking bucks. They are charging $250 for a PlayStation Portal, a dedicated streaming tablet, a glorified Wii U tablet controller that doesn't even have a web browser. The defense is always the same. Economics are hard. The RAM crisis is real. Tariffs. Sure, yes, maybe. Some of those things might have existed, but Sony is the only one using them as an excuse to turn a gaming console into a luxury jewelry item. When the Xbox raised prices, every one of you was out there yelling that it was anti-consumer. When Sony does it, what do the fanboys do? Well, they tell you it's just, hey man, They take the old kudaragi, take a second job defense. Work more overtime because you need it for Grand Theft Auto 6. It's the most pathetic display of brand loyalty in the history of this medium. And let me tell you all, if you're all waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6 and blah, 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 the least expensive way to play that thing right now, yeah, it's an Xbox Series S. Because it's coming to the Xbox Series S day one. And it's not going to cost you $600 freaking dollars to play that game. Let's look at the data, guys. Like, let me tell you right now, I don't own an Xbox. Full discrepancy, I don't own an Xbox. I had a PlayStation 5, and I sold it to my good friend. You guys know him. He's been on the podcast for years. Chris, UWA Talents. He's got my old PlayStation 5. Now, why did I get rid of it? Because I have a PC. I have a very decent mid-range PC that plays all the games that I want on the higher end. It outperforms everything that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series can do. And for my console exclusives, I own a Nintendo Switch 2. I'm good. But let's look at the data because at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. Historically, console gaming worked on a very simple, beautiful curve. You launch high to capture the early adopters, and as manufacturing matures, eventually, a couple of years down the road, you drop the price to capture the mass market. Look at the PlayStation 1. It launched at the price that would be about today, with inflation, about $640 today. But by the middle of the lifetime, it was half of that. The PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, and even the PlayStation 4 followed this seemingly normal timeline. By the time the console was 6 years old, you could usually find it for $199 or even $249, and that was a damn good deal. That is how you grow an install base and a major library that's already been backed for a couple of years. That is how you get kids into your ecosystem. They're forgetting that almost all kids today have cell phones, and it is so easy to lose those youngsters to that ecosystem. And trust me, they will not miss your console. Sony has officially inverted that curve. The PlayStation 5 is now more expensive 6 years in than it was on day one. We are seeing a horseshoe price graph where the cost is trending back up toward launch levels. This is unprecedented. Even with the rise of AI and RAM prices, you would assume, okay, maybe the thing won't get cheaper. It'll stay the same price. That's acceptable. But for it to go up, that's unacceptable. I don't care if you're Nintendo. And by the way, Nintendo, you're probably next. I'm going to release a video crapping on you if you raise the price of the Switch 2 as well. Sony is betting that because Xbox has essentially retreated to being a second or third-party publisher and Valve's Steambox was delayed and the dreams are missing in action, that they have no competition in the high-end space. They think that they own you. Sony wants you to believe that the PlayStation 5 Pro is the only way that you get high-end performance, and they're touting their PlayStation, their PSSR upscaling, and better ray tracing to justify that $900 price tag without a disk drive. But let's perform an autopsy on that logic. See, because at $900, the value proposition of a console is dead. You can go on the secondhand market right now, pick up a Ryzen 5 5600X, an RTX 3080, or even a 4070 and build yourself a rig that will embarrass the PlayStation 5 Pro. I've got a 3080 that runs circles around the PS5 Pro. And on that PC, and you don't have to pay $80 a year just to play against your friends online. You don't have to pay for a separate disk drive. You have access to a library that spans decades. Not just curated live service slop that Sony is pushing lately. Decades of PC games. We're talking Xbox 360 game eras, Nintendo Wii era games that came out on PC, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, all on your PC for less than what the PS5 Pro would cost you. The PS5 Pro is a console for people who have money more than they have sense. I'm sorry, guys. It's the truth. It is, I guess, a status symbol of throwing away your money for a generation of gamers that mostly consists of people who love remasters and canceled live action service projects like Concord or Highguard. Sony hasn't given us a reason to believe that the PlayStation 5 is invaluable. They've just given us a higher bill for the same experience that we had in 2020. If you think a 6, 7, 8, or 9-year-old in the year 2026 has this love attachment to their PlayStation 5, you are fooling yourself. The amount of first-party content isn't there. They are literally handing over these young gamers, these future gamers, to Nintendo. Just like myself, I started off in 1986. What was my first game console? Of course it was the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I had played Atari games at my cousin's house before, who were a little bit older than me. But Nintendo just hit the mark. And it seems like they're the only ones that, hey, they've seen the first video game crash. They look like they're the only ones that are prepared for the second one that's coming up. While Sony is busy trying to see how much blood they can squeeze from their PlayStation 1 fanboys, because those of you who are still hanging in there, you guys were PS1 fans. The guys who grew up in the 1996 era. And I get it. And I get it because that was your first console. Just like my first console was the NES. Like, I understand it. But we need to talk about the only company that seems to be remembering what video games are actually about. For 40 freaking years, Nintendo has been the spine of the entire gaming industry. In 1983, when Atari nearly killed gaming with absolute garbage and corporate greed and price increases, it was the Nintendo Entertainment System that saved it. Why? Because it was focused on one thing: games. Not the specs, not anything else, not anything extra. It was just the play. Fast forward to 2026, Nintendo launched the Switch 2 at $450 in 2025. And is it a powerhouse? No. Does it have 8K PSSR AI-driven nonsense? No. But what does it have? It does have one thing, and it actually does it pretty damn well. It has games. It has a stable ecosystem. While Sony is off filing patents for gaming co-pilots and jacking up hardware prices to cover their failed movie studio ambitions and their failed live-action service games, Nintendo is just out there making games that people actually want to play. Maybe it's not your cup of tea, but the sales number say that it is the mass market's cup of tea. Nintendo has survived every single tech arms race, every single gaming generation by simply opting out of what the competition is doing. They understand that the moment you price out the average family, you've lost the future. Now, if the Switch 2 goes up to $500, it's still too much in my opinion, but it will still be the least expensive option for gaming on a console. By default, they already beat a discless PlayStation 5. That's outrageous. Sony is currently handing the entire next generation of gamers to Nintendo on a silver platter, hoping that some days those gamers will mature and move on to Sony platforms. But what if the shareholders look at things and go, you know what? We're losing way too much money. Let's focus on movies, PCs, and cameras, Sony. And they they abandon it. Because out of all of the gaming companies out there, Sony is 1000% the less gaming focused and, frankly, the less soulless gaming company out there. I mean, it is what it is. It's always been about the shareholder at the end of the day. Here is the reality Sony doesn't want to admit. Younger gamers, the Gen Alpha and Gen Z kids, they don't have brand loyalty. They don't care about Nintendo or Sony or Xbox or any of that crap. They don't have brand loyalty to a plastic box that sits under a TV. Do you know why? Because they grew up with an iPad or an iPhone or a Galaxy in front of their freaking face. If you tell a 14-year-old that they need to go save up $1,000 to play the next Grand Theft Auto, they aren't going to do it. They're going to play the next available Fortnite replacement. They're going to either do that or stay on Roblox. They're going to stay on Fortnite and, frankly, on their phones or what's the most affordable console that they can ask for their parents. They're going to go buy a Switch or a Switch 2. It is what it is. You and I, we live in a gaming bubble for adults. We're out of the loop. We're old heads. Sony is pricing themselves into a corner. They are turning PlayStation into the Leica of gaming, a luxury brand for older, wealthy enthusiasts. But when those enthusiasts age out, who is left? If the industry level, the entire entry level for your ecosystem is $600 starting point, I'm sorry to break it to you, your ecosystem is dying. We're looking at a potential market implosion. If the PlayStation 6 launches at $1,000 along with Project Helix, the next Xbox, which, let's be real, it is where this is headed. The quote, console war is over. Nintendo won. And not because Nintendo just won, but because the audience left the building. Sony is arrogant. Xbox doesn't know what to do. Maybe Asha will turn things around. We don't know yet. But Sony, they think that because they have, I don't know, the next Marvel's Wolverine and Grand Theft Auto 6 is around the corner. By the way, that's coming out on Xbox as well. And eventually, we know it's coming to PC. And every rumor online has it coming to Switch too. But Sony views it as some kind of pseudo exclusive for, I don't know, maybe a first year, that you are willing to pay anything. They are betting on your desperation. However, they don't understand there are over 100 million PlayStation 5 and 30 plus million Xbox users already out there. These are probably the same gamers who want to grab Grand Theft Auto 6. Probably not going to cause a huge sales spike for the console. I mean, we might see some increase, but it's not going to be record breaking. My advice for you, my viewers, my gamers, please don't buy into the hype. The PlayStation 5 Pro is a monument to corporate greed. It is a digital-only future being forced down your throat at a premium price. If you want to see the industry survive another 40 years for this inevitable gaming crash, stop rewarding companies that treat you like a line item on a balance sheet. Stick to the companies that actually put the game in gaming. The curve is broken. The price is fake. And the Sony Pony and Xbox era is officially a circus. As always, I want to thank you all for joining me here at Starflagmedia Gaming. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. As you know what? If you've already liked and shared and subscribed, thank you. I appreciate it. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think about this latest price hike across the industry. I'm not an Xbox fanboy. I'm not a Sony Pony. I love all the consoles. I'm not a Nintendo fanboy. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. As always, Starflagmedia Gaming. Thanks for joining me, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace!